Rachel White with the Horizon League, here with some incredible administrators throughout the Horizon League as we prepare for our celebration of the 50th anniversary of Title IX this year. We are going to have a roundtable discussion today talking about some great administrators who made the transition from once being coaches in college athletics to now becoming administrators at the AD and SWA level. So first, I'm just going to introduce everyone here and let them talk a little bit about their path and how they started their career in coaching and have now transitioned into their current roles. So first, we have Kelley Hartley Hutton, who is the Purdue Fort Wayne Athletic Director. Kelley, if you want to introduce yourself and how you came to be the AD at PFW.
Hi, thanks, Rachel. And this is pretty cool to see these faces today. Go volleyball, right?
Right.
And that occurred to me. Kelley Hartley Hutton, Director of Athletics at Purdue Fort Wayne. I think I've been in this role 7 or 8 years. There's a couple of years there I think we all lost track of. I planned on getting into administration. I kind of thought I always would. I got sucked in, so to speak, while I was coaching often. Wanted to focus on my team. And then now I recognize in hindsight that what a responsibility being invited to the table to make some big decisions, including budget matters and hiring processes for our institution while I was coaching. But we can't control timing, and it occurred, that transition, a little earlier than I planned. We had a change in athletic directors here at Purdue Fort Wayne, and the chancellor at the time asked me to serve as the interim. I said no a couple times. The third time I thought maybe it was a bad idea to say no to the boss. So I said, sure, I'll coach my team and run the department for, a long period of time, 7 months. And then not my best coaching that year, I must say, but then applied for the position after really taking a look at the fact that I couldn't control timing, and would this opportunity present itself in the future? So that's how I became athletic director here, a little earlier than I had planned, transitioning from coaching to administration. But I'm glad I did.
Great, thanks, Kelley. Next, we will go to Kathy Litzau, Milwaukee Senior Associate Director of Athletics and SWA.
Hi, everybody. So my career started post-college. So I played at Notre Dame. And my senior year, my coach asked if I had any interest in coaching. And my immediate thought was, oh, I need a break, right? Like we all kind of felt like I need a break from my sport. But then he pointed out that the University of Illinois was looking for a grad assistant. And my immediate thought was, ooh, that would be really cool to work there. So I was pretty fortunate that I only applied for one GA position. And then honestly, that set me on my path. I was fortunate to get that job. And then after Illinois, I went on to Wisconsin, was a restricted earnings coach. So I think everyone on this call knows what that position was. And there wasn't much pay. Eventually, the courts decided that was illegal. And so that went away. But from that experience, I was fortunate to move on. And I was an assistant at Michigan State for a very brief period of time. But then kind of through that process, learned from a lot of great people, had a lot of great mentors, and was fortunate to get hired here as the volleyball coach in the early 90s. And, but I will say that University of Illinois experience I had getting my master's, really learning about the whole business of athletics. I felt like that head coach, Mike Hebert, looked at it more as a business and really incorporated a lot of different parts of the university, the athletic department. And I just learned so much. And I thought, I think I really have an interest in moving into admin. So when I came to Milwaukee, I shared that interest with my athletic director, who Bud Haiti was wonderful in giving me opportunity. And I would just regularly share with him, is there a way I can get more experience? Can I serve on committees? Eventually, he named me an assistant athletic director as well as volleyball coach. And I got to be sort of a quiet person in the room early, just to kind of learn what goes on. And then I started to find my voice. And I give a lot of credit to Bud that he was really great at allowing me to share my thoughts. I represented, a lot of peers within our department because, fellow coaches would share things with me. And then I sort of created a path of when I wanted to move into admin, and was, communicating that to my athletic director, to Bud. And honestly, it was like a 5-year plan I had. And within like 2 months, the Associated DSWA at that time, Deanna DeBraccio, decided to take a new job. And Bud came to me and said, I think that you would be a great fit. And I certainly had to go through the search process, but maybe entered a little bit sooner than I had planned for. But, to Kelley's point too, things don't always happen exactly as you plan, and you have to take advantage of the opportunity. And I'm so glad I did.
Thanks, Kathy. Next up, we have Debbie Kirch, the Northern Kentucky Associate Athletic Director for Compliance and Student Services and SWA.
Thanks, Rachel. And it's interesting to listen to everybody's paths, because I feel like we all kind of got to the same place, similar ways. Same as Kathy. After I graduated with my undergrad, I really knew that I wanted to be involved in athletics. I wasn't sure in what capacity, but definitely athletics had been such a big part of my life. I wanted to stay involved in athletics, and had the opportunity for a graduate assistant position at Mississippi State to work as an assistant volleyball coach. And the year that I was there, it just was very impactful for me to see the difference that I could make with student athletes, even as a graduate assistant. And so I fell in love with coaching and got an opportunity at Northwestern as an assistant coach, restricted earnings, went through the whole process during the lawsuit where all of a sudden I was getting checks after I left because of the lawsuit that had been brought forward with restricted earnings coach. But quite honestly, again, it gave me an opportunity to get my foot in the door before I got the position at Green Bay as a head volleyball coach. And similar situation, you just can't control timing. We had a transition in the compliance, assistant AD for compliance at Green Bay. We didn't have an SWA at the time. And so Ken Butoff, our athletic director at the time, came to me and just felt like having that coaching background would help me in an administrator role, and asked me at that time if I would be interested in transitioning. And I looked at it as a new challenge, something that I was pretty excited about. And so, as coaches, we're all very competitive, looking for new challenges for ourselves. And so I made that transition into the administrative area.
Thank you, Debbie. And last but certainly not least, we have Joylynn Brown, who's the Wright State Senior Associate Athletics Director in SWA.
Thank you. My path was a little bit different than the other three women on the panel, just because I've been at Wright State in athletics the entire time. So when I was a student athlete at Wright State, and then I started coaching right after college. I was assistant coach and then became head coach 3 years later. So I was pretty young as a head coach, but had a great experience, had some success, and then actually left coaching for about 10 years and went out into the real world and was I was a professional recruiter for in the legal field, which was very interesting. And it taught me that people's needs really are the same, whether they're an 18-year-old in high school or a 57-year-old male attorney. People are pretty much the same. So that was a really good opportunity for me to learn about things outside of athletics. But the biggest thing was learning a lot about human nature and how to make people feel valued. Well, that was pretty important. And then I had stayed in contact with our athletics director, Bob Grant, and thankfully he contacted me when the SWA role came open, and I went through the process, questioned myself because I'd been out of athletics, all the things that would I be able to do this, and decided that absolutely we're going to give it a shot, and I love it. I think I'm better suited for administration than I was for coaching, because I feel like my strengths that I had as a coach, I get to utilize every day in administration. And I think that sometimes in coaching, it's overwhelming, everything that you have to worry about. And some of the things that you want to spend more time on, you can't. And I think in this role, I'm able to focus on student athlete welfare, building those relationships, mentoring coaches. I'm not sure about the rest of you, but I'm the only one in our administration who was a student athlete and a coach. I'm sorry, that was a coach. And I think that makes a big difference in our role as administrators, because we've been in that chair before. And I think that helps our coaches a lot, because there's somebody saying, well, have we thought about it this way when we're in those meetings with administration? And this is why the coach needs this. So I think that's important for all of us that we've experienced it. So we're able to speak to that with our administration. So I love what I do, and I'm just thankful that I'm here and that I'm still in college athletics.
Thank you guys all for sharing your background a little bit. Now we're just going to roll into some questions. So Kelley, we'll start with you on this one. I know you touched on this a little, but why did you ultimately decide to make the transition from coaching to administration?
Well, like I had indicated, I'd had a seat at the table. I was an associate AD in SWA while I was coaching for many years, which was challenging. Both are full-time jobs and need 100% of an individual's attention. So that was not the right model. Changed that when I became AD. So that was something I was really proud of, is getting that model to serve students in our department the right way. And then there was a woman in our department who was ready and eager and very capable, and Christine Kusnar, who now is our SWA. But as far as that transition, I skipped a lot there because I'm older probably than some people here, but for 3 years after college, I worked in a Division I conference office. And that was an incredible baseline of learning for me from a conference commissioner. And Rachel, you know, all the things that go on behind the curtain, but very administrative. And it was a good look at many institutions on how there's got a lot of ways to skin a cat, right? A lot of good ways. A lot of people brought different things to the table, different personalities, different perspectives. And a lot of people did things really, really well because they cared a lot. So I learned a lot those 3 years, and then missed my sport terribly. I was a student athlete as well, and then went into coaching at a small college and moved around just a little bit before landing here, and then here a long time. But I think that baseline, that my experience right out of college as a graduate assistant in a conference office, I kind of thought I would make my way back that way. And I like working with different sports, though I love volleyball. Like, I'm a basketball junkie. I love watching track and field and cross country. So this has been fun. And then watching them compete, that's the fun part of the job. But making decisions that impact young people and our staff, I certainly like being at the table and in a collaborative way, making the best decision possible to serve everyone involved.
Thanks, Kelley. Joylynn, did you want to talk a little about your transition as well?
Yes, I had mentioned it was a little bit different because I got out of coaching, but I think that while I was coaching, we talk about this with our coaches. It's the highest highs and the lowest lows, right? And the highs are amazing, but the lows are not fun. And so, no, total disclosure, when I got out of coaching, it was almost I'm going to see myself out moment, because things weren't going well. And I needed to regroup and figure out what I was going to do. And the team wasn't as successful as I felt they could have been. So it took a long time after I left to get over that. It's almost a feeling of loss. You know, you've worked with these young people, you've been in this family environment, and then now you're just a regular person like everyone else. I think you can understand what I mean by that if you've been involved in athletics. It's just this large group that you're responsible for, and then it's just you. And so when I went into the business world, I was able to utilize things that I learned while I was coaching, especially the recruiting piece. I mentioned that a little bit ago. It's so very similar, regardless of what you're recruiting for. It's similar concepts. And when I was in the business world, it really made me realize how much I missed athletics. It was a part of who I was my entire life. It was my identity, and not having that, I definitely was missing something. And so getting back into it, that transition was interesting because I had been out for almost 10 years. And I remember during the interview process, there were people here who hadn't been here when I coached. So they didn't know who I was. They didn't care who I was. And trying to convince them, well, you've been out so long, how are you going to be able to do this? And I just said, well, I'm a fast learner, and I'm ready to get involved and get back at it. So I think it definitely was a chance that Bob definitely took a chance on me. And I think that I just tried to learn as quickly as possible. So that was the big thing from being gone for so long. Things had changed. Student athletes had changed. So trying to get up to speed as quickly as possible. And I think that's the other thing. We always have to be willing to change because our student athletes are changing every year. And I don't think that any one of us can say, well, that's not how they used to be. Well, if you're saying that, it might be time to not do this anymore, because you have to be willing to change with them, because that's the only way you're going to be successful. So.
Great, thank you guys. This next question, we will start with you, Kathy, and then go to you, Debbie, on what would you say was the most challenging aspect of making the transition from coach to full-time administrator?
Yeah, so as has been mentioned, working in athletics, we're all very competitive, and everybody on this call right now coached and had that competitive fire. There's a reason why we went into this profession as coaches first. And so that was probably the most shocking to me. Was everything in my mind was a win or loss. When you coach, you win a recruit or you lose a recruit, you win a game or you lose a game, you know, you win a GPA award or you don't, you know, like everything that how I sort of ran my program was really about winning. And it was winning in all phases of your life. So everything that had a gauge. So when I moved into admin, you know, I sort of helped coaches with my philosophy on how I coached and how, you know, it worked for me. We were pretty successful. I had a great program and maybe it could help them, but everybody has different nuances and there's different needs. And so then you have to work within kind of their, how they develop and the philosophy that they have for their program. But then for me, it was, how am I evaluating my work? You know, it's not really a win-loss. I mean, you could look at, okay, supervised men's soccer, they win. Is that a win for me? But then I'm like, it doesn't feel, you know, it's like I support them. So the challenge was sort of finding my identity, I suppose, in administration. And then I also, even within this SWA group, initially, I was like, how do you collaboratively work within the conference? Because again, it's about winning and losing. So it was sort of making that shift away from everything as a win. You know what I mean? You know, we still get evaluated by that, but in admin, we're here to provide much more than that. And so it was sort of settling down and settling in, and then just really working closely with everybody in our department. And then I will add one other interesting challenge that I found was, you know, as a coach, you're used to working on conflict resolution or challenges within like an 18 to 22-year-old age group. And then that first time I had to have that tough conversation with somebody who was older than me that really did something that I thought was really inappropriate. And I was like, I can't believe I'm having this conversation with somebody that's 10 years older than me. So that was a big challenge. Was, you know, I always thought age meant superiority, or, you know, so again, that kind of had to change my approach to issues and problems and working towards resolution.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what Kathy said, I have it's a competitiveness. You lose that outlet. You feel like it's interesting because we've all coached against each other too. So it's not just that we've come from coaching, but we've had to coach against each other as well. But you find new, new wins, like Kathy said, like when I was at Green Bay and I was the only compliance staff, like if I won a waiver, that was my win. And, if we nominate our student athletes for awards and they get it, that's our win. And, but we're all very competitive, and you lose that outlet, and you have to find, different ways to like feed that competitiveness. I also would say a challenge was, like, as a coach, your focus is singular. I would say singular on your program, on your student athletes. The focus is more intense because of the time that you're spending with that group, but sometimes you have your blinders on and you're not really paying attention or seeing what's going on around you with other programs. And so to have that wider focus as an administrator and being responsible for all of our student athletes, for all of our sport programs, doing whatever we can to help them succeed. Sometimes that wider focus is very challenging because I have a hard time juggling a lot of balls at the same time. And if a student athlete from one team comes in, they don't care that I'm dealing with something with a student athlete from another team. Their situation is what's important to them. So I would say that's another challenge as well.
Thank you both. Our next question for Kelley and then Kathy. What do you enjoy most about your current role?
I'll go quickly first. I still enjoy going to the games. I know it sounds maybe obvious, but once in a while, my friends, I do have a couple outside of athletics, like, why are you going to a baseball game on a Saturday? Do you have to be there? No, that's the fun part of the job, is watching the students that you see in the hallway and working hard and in the weight room and all of the things, do what they love to do. And then I can't help but be a little bit of a fan. And you might see me at some of our contests. I know maybe as administrators, we're obviously supposed to be professional, but a little fist pump once in a while, because we are competitors. And that's, I think, okay to show that once in a while, that you're enthusiastic and excited about what our student athletes are doing. And I'm with you. Someone said it's something really important. Maybe it was Joylynn. As students are changing, huge benefit that I really enjoy pulling from my coaching experience and conversations that I had with our particularly maybe younger staff of coaches. And I often remind myself how students and times have changed, and certainly the landscape of college athletics has changed. But at the end of the day, volleyball is still volleyball, and relationships are relationships. But that's going back to, cheering for the Dons and our student athletes, and seeing them, pursue their dreams, academic and athletic, on our campus is what it's all about for me, of course.
Yeah, and for me, it would be when I get the opportunity to work really closely with student athletes. So again, that when people say, how was that transition and what do you miss the most? And I would say having your own team, right? Because you see student athletes come in, you mentor them from freshman year to senior year, their development, their growth. You have this alumni group that you stay with, that I'm still in touch with my former alums. So when you leave coaching, it's trying to find that connection with the student athletes. And so what I really love is when I find athletes that are passionate about an issue, a topic, an area that we can work together. I have one former swimmer who I'm really good friends with now. She's graduated many years ago, but her freshman year, she kept complaining. I said, come on in, sit down, let's chat. It's like, there's always something. And I'm like, let's work towards a solution. And she became one of the greatest advocates for her peers, but in a positive way. Like, she learned how to positively advocate for herself, how to advocate for her teammates, her peers, and what their needs were. And so I really love just listening to them and helping them maybe even understand why things are the way they are. Like, if they request something that maybe is a resource we don't provide, and we tell them why. And then we also say, but if there is a way for you to achieve what you're looking for, and this is another way to do that. Like, trying never to say no, or we can't, or just kind of helping them have better understanding of what we do provide and how we can assist them. So really, that I really still try to keep that student athlete connection going.
Thanks, Kathy. And you touched on this a little bit, but we're going to ask Joylynn and Debbie, what do you guys miss the most about not being in coaching anymore?
The competitive aspect of it. This is going to sound ridiculous. The bus rides at times, the time that the student athletes can completely be themselves. They feel like they're in a safe environment, and just the silly memories. It's the same memories that you had as a player, as a coach, just being involved all the time with that. But I think the competitive part, probably the matches. I mean, I think in any contest, when we're watching it, sometimes you just want to be able to stand up and say, why don't you try this? And obviously we can't do that. That wouldn't go over very well. But just that side, I would say the competitive and the day-to-day, the fact that we were able to work with student athletes every single day. I think sometimes in what we do now, it may be several days where we don't see any student athletes, especially right now. Summertime is tough when they're not here, because they're kind of they bring the energy into the office. So when they're not here, we have to find that energy elsewhere. So I think that's difficult too. Whereas when you're coaching, you're constantly in communication with student athletes, whether it be recruits or your current student athletes. So I think that's one thing that's a challenge too, just not having the day-to-day communication.
Yeah, I agree with Joylynn. It's the relationships that you build with your student athletes. They're just on a different level than you build as administrator. You definitely, I mean, we try because that's why we do what we do is for our student athletes. And so I'm always looking for ways to be more involved with our student athletes, working with our SAC, as a sport administrator, trying to build those relationships, but it's not the same as when you're coaching and you're really watching them on a daily basis, growing from the time that they come in till the time that they leave, and developing those relationships that you continue after they graduate. That's what I miss the most.
Thank you both. Kelley, this one is for you. As an athletic director, what positives have you seen in college athletics as more women have the opportunity to be in those leadership positions as ADs, conference commissioners, and such?
Well, I guess I would start with, we don't have enough women in administrative positions. I was looking at some numbers yesterday preparing for this call, and I was shocked, particularly the Division I level. And I'm so glad that we have strong SWAs on our campuses, but now I think is it 3 women out of 12 in the Horizon League anyway, in the athletic director chairs. Yet, at least on our campus, 50%, and we are right around 50%, I'm proud to say, of our student athletes are women. So it's still not representative of those we serve. Now, what positive things, and I'm going to big broad brush here, I think, probably too broad, maybe, because I work with fantastic men. But I do think, and certainly if you read about women in not just leadership roles in athletics, but other industries too, there's a lens, we cannot deny the lens we look through, and bringing some real positive change to our staff members, changing policies and maybe procedures that benefit men and women. I don't know about you guys, but on our campus right now, it's really exciting. There's a lot of young people getting married and having families. And I shouldn't say try, I urge them to take that time necessary. And that wasn't provided to me as a young mother 15 years ago, well, an old mother actually 15 years ago, but things were very different. And Kathy, I bet you can speak to that a little bit too. I remember a conversation with you a long, long time ago. So I love having a seat at the table and being able to impact our staff. But that broad brush I was talking about, I do think that we, as women, in our department anyway, very collaborative, incredibly collaborative. I know at the end of the day, I have to make decisions. That's my job. But I certainly appreciate input and a lot of it and seek it out. And that's one difference maybe as a coach. We made decisions, boom, 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 we made decisions quickly. And I had to recognize that some decisions do need more time and input and careful thought. So that was a challenge for me, still is sometimes. But that collaborative aspect of leadership, I think, at least the friends and colleagues I have in this industry, that's their mindset. And then of course, gender equity. Instead of thinking about it as an afterthought, oh yeah, how can it not be in the forefront of what we do? As we coached women, we saw those changes. We were student athletes. My buddies who were football players, I watched the way their experience occurred, in the 80s, and mine sure was not that. And though we have a lot of work to do, can't deny that, we have more women, I think, advocates for an equitable sort of experience.
Thank you, Kelley. Next question for you, Kathy. I know you serve on a variety of roles in the Horizon League, the SWA chair, women's basketball admin liaison. How would you say the Horizon League really helps support women coaches and administrators?
Yeah, first, with some of the groups that you listed, I would say giving us a voice. So the platform first to provide for SWAs the opportunity to meet regularly, and for the league to support us as a group and to listen and to seek resources if needed. Since I entered we were first the MCC and then the Horizon League, I was very fortunate to be mentored by Elfrida Goff. And Elfrida is an incredible supporter of women coaches and women administrators. And Christine and yourself, Rachel, and Julie, of course, have carried that torch forward and really made sure that all of our coaches, our female coaches and our female administrators are supported and are put on committees, are given a voice. So that's been really great. And to Kelley's point about being a working mom, Alfredo was instrumental in my ability to do both, because I would reach out to her often. When I became pregnant with my first child, our athletic department didn't know what to do with me because they'd never had a pregnant coach. And the university wasn't even quite sure. So to be honest, I really never took maternity leave. I just brought my children to work. And that was really forward thinking on the part of my athletic director to support that. But then I was also given a lot of resources from the league to just support that. I remember one time I took a newborn to a conference that the Horizon League hosted, and the support that was there for that was incredible. So, I think it was just providing as many opportunities to continue on and to make sure they supported and talked about work-life. We used to call it balance, but now I think it's just integration and, just being able to make it to the next day sometimes.
Thanks, Kathy. Next question for you, Debbie. How do you feel the role of the SWA has really evolved or changed since you started out in college athletics?
I think that's a really tough question to answer. When I think back to when I first started in athletics, I think actually the SWA role was extremely important because it guaranteed at the very least one woman administrator in the department. And so I think that was important because then you knew that there was at least one administrator, female administrator in the department. And it was hard because when we started in coaching, there was a lot more male coaches than female. So there wasn't a lot of people for us to turn to. So I don't think the importance of the role I don't think the role has gotten more important. I feel like it was extremely important at that time. And now because of that role, now you're seeing more opportunities for women, more female administrators in addition to the SWA, more opportunities at the athletic director level. Still not where it needs to be, but I think that's where the involvement has come from. It's just more opportunities, which I'm really excited about.
Thanks, Debbie. Similar question for you, Joylynn. Why do you feel that today the SWA is still such an important role in every athletic department?
Well, besides it being, like we said, a designation of, you have to have the highest ranking female in the office. I think it's as important for our male student athletes as it is for our female student athletes, because a lot of times people will say to me, that is so great that the young women have you in a leadership role that they can look up to and learn from. And I agree with that. And I think we're all in that position. But I also think it's so important that the young men we work with see a woman in a position of power that they work with every day. I have been fortunate enough to, I think all of us have supervised men's sports as well as women's sports. And having that contact with the student athletes and proving to them that you are as qualified and as knowledgeable as your male counterparts, I think that's really important, because we want to be able to say, obviously, to the young women, you can do this, you can do anything. But we also want to say to our young men, I can do this, women can do anything. And I think that it should become the norm. So I have a female supervisor, my boss is a woman, that's great. It's not an issue. So the more that we have women in leadership roles and can show to men and women that we're equipped for it, that we're very, very good at it, and that we're strong leaders, I think that helps everybody. So I think that's why it's so very important too. There are times, I think we've all been in this situation too, where we are the only woman at the table in a meeting, and being able to speak up and have your voice and give your input is really, really important. So I think that role has developed because we want obviously more women in leadership roles, but as Kelley said, we still have a long way to go. But I think in the positions that we are in, as long as we are constantly advocating, not only for women, but for everyone, that it's just going to continue to get better.
Thank you, Joylynn. We have a couple more questions here, and we're going to let all four of you answer these. So we will start with, what is the biggest challenge you feel that women still have to face today in a career in college athletics? Kelley, we can start with you.
I do think it's more our women, at least in our department, who still struggle with that integration of their life and their responsibilities. They take very seriously as a, having a family, for example, and integrating that life. And even, our young people who don't have families yet, they need to have, and our student athletes too, right? Need to have other interests and other things in their life that make them happy and bring them joy. Is it healthy to put your eggs in one basket of anything? Probably not. We're finding that. Read some really good stuff already this month. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And having other interests is healthy. So I think as women, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be everything to everyone at all times, whether it's your role as a parent or a partner, and as a leader too. And so I think that's challenging. And it is for me too, to put up in place some healthy boundaries of work and time. And I'm talking about right now, I'm not very good at it. That phone is with me, it seems like, at all times. And once in a while, my daughter, my husband will take it from me, and that's a good signal. And then there are times I think as leaders, we're at least in good position now to take that at least other pressure, whether it's self-applied, we can have those conversations with people about that self-applied pressure that's really tough to get away from. But at least they're not getting pressure from their supervisor and other leaders about taking much earned and needed time for other things in their lives. So I think that's a challenge, because I think as women, we do that to ourselves a little bit.
Kathy?
Yeah, I would say, we really need to probably do a better job of mentoring our young women. Like, I was pretty fortunate that I had that meeting with my coach, who was a man, and he just saw something in me that really laid the path for me to be in this wonderful career now for 29 years. And I started, in the last few years, started thinking about that of who am I reaching out to? Who am I continuing to say, hey, you would be a great coach. Hey, you would be great in my seat. Hey, this would be, so I've been trying to do that more. And I have a wonderful athletic director, Amanda Brown, who is always trying to mentor. She's always, offering shadowing opportunities. She's really great at getting out. And I thought, okay, I need to do a better job of that. And, to Kelley's point, that we're all moving a mile a minute. And, there are the workday can be 7 days a week. It really can, but we need to model better that there are breaks in that, so that people see it as a career that they can have and still have a family, which I've certainly tried to do, having raised 4 kids while being in this profession. But it's hard, and so you just really need to work with the young women to give them the opportunity and support them and hope that we can continue to grow and have more women sitting in the seats here that lead our departments.
Debbie?
My answer is same as Kathy's, the mentoring piece of it. And I think one of the challenges is there still aren't enough mentors out there that can help. I'm always encouraging my younger staff to get involved in their associations and the mentoring programs through that, to continue to get as many mentors in their careers and lives as they can. But there's just not the number that it should be right now. But to Kathy's point, we really need to do our part in that as well, and making sure that we are looking at the women in our department and or student athletes as they're graduating, or coaches as they're transitioning, and really doing our part in the mentoring process as well.
Joylynn?
I think along with what everyone else is saying is, reaching out to people that have an interest in athletics, getting those student athletes to stay focused, to stay in it. And I think a challenge for me is finding time to do those things, finding time to mentor someone, because we are very, very busy. And so, excuse me, a lot of times the day is over with and you think, oh my gosh, I didn't do this. Like I'm getting through and getting everything checked off my list, but I'm not helping other people, or I didn't answer the SWA email that said, what are you doing about this? Because I just simply don't have time. And I think that's that's a challenge. And I think we do set the tone for our coaches about what's acceptable, not acceptable. And that sounds oversimplified, but I guess what I mean by that, if our coaches had a tough weekend, I will literally tell them, you need to do something for yourself today. I don't want to see you in this office, and really do something for yourself. And if you say that to a coach, they have a really hard time figuring out what to do, because they don't know what to do. Why did we lose? What can we do better? No, you need to take a break and do something for yourself. And I think we set that tone in the office. With us, we always say we're family oriented. Well, are we family oriented, or do we just say that? So if we have a coach who needs to bring their child into the office, absolutely, please do. I mean, that is my favorite part, when we have the young people around the office, and I kidnap them for a little bit and they hang out in my office, but it's just, that needs to be the norm, and it needs to be accepted. It only takes one person to say something negative, and then that coach will never bring that child in again. But if we make it positive and that they are welcome, and can the child travel? Absolutely. Just a couple forms we have to fill out, but absolutely, as long as it's not taking away from what you're doing with your team. I have found that the student athletes actually love that. And I think it's a good example for them, because they see that you can do it. And I don't know, I just think we're the ones who need to be able to speak up for the moms and the dads in the office, because some other people, if they're so used to doing things one way, well, that's not usually what it's like in here. Well, there's no reason it can't be like that. I mean, we're not rocket scientists. I mean, having a 3-year-old running around the hallway is not going to be a bad thing if that means that dad can come to work and get some stuff done that day. So I think just encouraging, really backing up what we say, which the family environment, obviously your family's welcome here, make it happen. And then I would say, just like you were saying, I need to challenge myself to get more involved, to find that time out of every single day to do something to help grow this role, and to get more women involved. So I think that's a good point that you all made.
We're going to end it here with one final question. We're going to end it on a positive note. What excites you most about the future of women in college athletics? Kelley, you can start us off.
Well, I guess a lot of things. When I see our student athletes, completely different perspective than I had decades ago, leaving college, and going on to fields that, STEM and other areas that traditionally very, very male, and they don't even think about it. And isn't that what we wanted? Sometimes I'll get in my get off my lawn phase, and I'm like, they don't know how good they have it. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's what we wanted. We wanted them to just go, yeah, things are equal and things are fair, and I have the same sort of possibilities in my life as my brother, right? So that's really exciting to me when I come to this recognition of the possibilities that our daughters will have, not just in athletics, but as they go out into the world, and are great leaders out in the world too.
Kathy?
Yeah, and I would say, again, looking at the fact that we do have more women in leadership roles, granted it's not enough, but then we think, okay, we're going to continue to grow that. We have younger women that are getting involved, and that just means, that we have a bigger voice, and that, we're at a time where the NCAA is changing, and that could absolutely lead to providing more opportunity, a more comfort level, and the interest, because it is changing. Like the way it was before, maybe it wasn't of interest to a lot of women, but now that it is changing and they see what the changes are, that might actually be drawing more women and minorities to the table and give opportunities where there weren't any before.
Debbie?
Continue same kind of same direction, just the opportunities, the increased opportunities are exciting. And just the changes that you're seeing at the NCAA level with the support of women's athletics and sport programs. Again, still a lot of work to be done, but the gender equity study that was put in place last year, you can see the changes happening immediately. And so I think that's exciting, and will help the leadership opportunities grow as well.
I think that watching women's sports have the forefront at times is really exciting. Television coverage is really exciting. Having people who know about women's athletics that several years ago wouldn't have been interested at all. That's exciting for me. I like the fact that our student athletes are being encouraged now to find their voice, to get involved in social justice, I mean, it's certainly very inclusive. All of these things that I don't think happened when we were student athletes. You know, the last thing we wanted when we were student athletes, you didn't want to find your voice because you didn't want to rock the boat. Now, rock the boat, let's make things happen. And so I think that's exciting. I think that we have some really, really strong leaders who are student athletes on all of our campuses, and just encouraging them to be great leaders and take advantage of the programs that the NCAA is offering. I think there are a lot of great programs that can help develop young student athletes. So that's very exciting for me. And the fact that women's sports are getting the attention that they deserve, and that will only continue to grow.
Well, thank you all so much for your time today and for sharing your stories and some great advice for the next generation coming up. So stay tuned with Horizon League social media accounts and platforms throughout the month of June as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Title IX. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel.
Thank you.